Are you gonna knock on the door? How's that go?
There was quite literally a building inspector knocked on the door. He says, "Nope, this is not correct." I mean, and this like has like a kitchen. They're like, "Yeah, you get 30 days to." Like, I'm saying this cavalierly, but it's because it was so emotional and such hits that it's like,
Sure.
let's try not to remember.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. No.
We had to bring it down to the studs.
Whoa. What do I do if I have an existing unit and I'm not sure if it's permitted or not? We've got somebody, a real homeowner who's been through that whole process and kind of went through the ringer, honestly, but figures out all the work that needs to get done, and then goes through the very difficult process of finding a builder who wants to do a sort of small ADU where they're taking over unpermitted existing work. Did all that and more, and they're going to talk to us about how it all worked. And at any point, if you're listening, you're like, I need to work with the same company that Kathleen worked with, there's a link in the video description below so that you can work with Realm Home. They're going to find you 3 bids from builders who they've vetted, who are in your area. They're going to give you specific agreements and bids for your specific project, and that is the best way to figure out what your project's going to cost. So that's why they're sponsoring this video, and that's why they've introduced me to Kathleen. Thank you so much, Kathleen, for coming on the show today.
Thanks so much for having me.
Everybody has questions about these kinds of existing units, right? So when you first came into this property, when was that?
That was now 2.5 years ago. So 2021 or 2022. No, it was March 2022.
Okay.
Yes.
So you're
Yeah.
you're visiting a new a property and thinking about it, and what did you like about this house?
So we were looking into only income properties. So we were looking at duplexes primarily. And our realtor was like, yeah, but Airbnb is like pretty good. And I found this awesome place. And it's kind of dream house for us. Like it's a cute little bungalow. We love it here. And they have, this functioning Airbnb in the back. It's going great. And they could prove the income they got from it. All of it was great.
Yeah.
And so we were like, sign us up. This is a dream scenario. Let's do it. And we actually did Airbnb for, I mean, almost immediately when we moved in until we got the notice September 2023.
Dun,
So it
dun,
was,
dun.
yeah. So we really exactly. We really were doing it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So take a step back. When you're looking at properties, you knew you wanted to live there, but you also wanted it to be an investment property and kind
Exactly.
of house hack it. Sometimes people talk about, but you've got an investment there because it's a duplex or an existing
Right.
Airbnb, and it's helping
Right.
you pay that mortgage.
Exactly. Exactly.
And you
Yeah.
find this one, and it's like the dream scenario because they're already cash flowing the
Oh yeah.
Airbnb.
Oh yeah. It was
So,
great.
so you were looking at the numbers. You're like, oh wow, the Airbnb is generating some money already. This is great. We just keep this
Yeah.
ball rolling.
Right.
Okay.
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
you go in, and several months later, in September,
Yes.
you're finding out you get a knock on the door. How's that go?
Yes. So there was quite literally a building inspector knocked on the door, and I had the document that we had from the previous owners that it was all in kind of mumbo jumbo that your viewers and you probably understand much better than I do, but I had no idea what they were talking about. And I'm like, no, no, it's definitely a permitted ADU. And he's like, okay, here's my email address. Send it to me. And we send it. And he says, nope, this is not correct. And then our friend who's an architect kind of vouched for us, and she said, he's being quite a stickler about this, but technically there's a way that this could I guess there's something about the how it's zoned for what you use it for. And
Hmm.
so it was permitted as a garage, but there's something about how they did it where you could, I don't know. She had a case and
Hmm.
she went to bat for it just initially to see if
Hmm.
we could make the complaint go away. But he really stuck to it.
Hmm.
And then they gave us, it was wild. They said, within 30 days, you have to either put this back into a garage. I mean, and this like
Oh
has
my
like
god.
a kitchen. They're like, yeah, you get 30 days, or you can, um, you know, pursue getting this accurate or, updating it to be a um, compliant ADU. And so Yeah, we got to figure this out real fast.
Okay, so and we're gonna go through a couple little things, and you can tell me if you know or if you don't. It's fine either way.
Okay.
But
Yes.
the existing thing, so
Yes.
it's a detached structure in your backyard,
Uh-huh.
and it has like a kitchen or a kitchenette.
Yeah. Yes, a kitchenette, but yes.
Kitchenette, yeah. Was there like a stove? Is there
There
an
was a
oven?
stove, there was a stove, a fridge, a microwave.
Okay,
Um,
yeah,
yeah.
it's pretty serious. That's like the California requirements for a kitchen. Sounds like it ticks those off, right?
Yeah,
And
totally.
then yeah, its own bathroom.
Yep. Mhm.
And so everything's done. Sewer, plumbing, electrical. It's an operational Airbnb,
Oh,
and
yeah.
really, it's got all the trimmings for a full fledged ADU.
Yep, yep, yep. Yeah.
Okay, and then you get this notice. Sorry this happened. That sounds like the nightmare. Somebody
Yes.
maybe, and for people who are watching, typically, well, actually, Kathleen, do
Yeah.
you know why this happened?
We still don't know. It feels the best guess because the lore in our block is like, oh, it's probably a neighbor complaint, but we it occurred pretty quickly after. So in LA, there's a short-term rental permit, and then there's a long-term, and so we were all good. Nothing happened with the monthlies,
Mhm.
and so it was we got this short-term rental for the Airbnb, but there's a day limit. Like you can
Yeah.
only do it a certain number of days a year. So we applied for the extension and then we got the knock on
Okay.
the door. So it
Okay.
feels like
Yeah.
maybe, but it's still suspicious. I don't know
Yeah.
how.
Yeah, that's great. So, like, very
Yeah,
typical that it's a
right.
neighbor or somebody
Yeah,
staying there who complains,
right.
and
Yeah,
and then what you've said is another common reason
right.
where it's like, hey, we were doing what we were supposed to do, thinking it's a compliant unit, so we file for some other piece of thing,
Right.
and then the city's like, hold on,
Yeah.
you've got a what?
Yep.
Okay,
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. Then
all
we're
right.
on the
And then
radar.
and then people watching might be like, I thought ADUs aren't supposed to be short-term rentals for under 30 days, but depends on the city, and LA has a path for you to do that.
Yes. Yeah, yeah, yeah. For short-term rentals, I don't know, there are several in our
Yeah.
area. Yeah, it's a
Hmm.
whole thing. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Don't list any of them on the show. The guy's gonna knock on the door. So
Exactly.
you get the terrible knock on the door. You get the notice. They give you
Yeah.
30 days to either revert it to a non-habitable garage,
Right. Right.
which is sort of
Yeah.
crazy because like the whole
Right.
point of this is we want more housing units, we
Right,
want more,
exactly. Yeah,
but
yeah.
it's one of those things. So they give
Yeah.
you 30 days to either revert it or make it compliant,
Right.
start the process of making it compliant.
Yes.
And you
Yeah.
call an architect friend who helps you kind of
Yeah.
put an argument together. That's
Right.
okay.
Yes, exactly.
Do you remember
Yeah.
what the argument was exactly?
There was something about so it wasn't so you know what? I'm gonna butcher
You
it.
good. You good.
I don't even wanna try. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it
I
was
get that feeling too sometimes
right.
when I do this, right?
Gosh. Yes, I remember something about, like, well, this is zoned as an R3 or an
Yeah.
R2 or something like some zoning something where
Yeah.
she's like, "Well, it could be this way or that way from their
Yeah.
perspective." Yeah.
And that's often the case, right? It's like if you look
Yeah,
at the zoning versus the use versus the whatever it was permitted as, there's
right,
always a couple different ways to read this. So your architect friend tries their best,
right.
and what happens?
Um, so she went toe to toe with the inspector, and then, yeah, she really did a fantastic job, and yet he kind of stuck to his
Yeah.
guns. And so then we decided, okay, well, we've gotta renovate it then because it's not really an option to turn it into a garage because we need the
Yeah.
income for the house. So so then we had to figure out what to do next. And it just kind of, I mean, the permitting process took so long that it's all kind of a blur now. I should add, I was like very newly pregnant when this all happened. And so like my brain wasn't totally online anyway.
Working on
So
a couple things.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So the permit stuff, it all took quite a while before we were actually in a position to move into construction. And then when we were having such a hard time finding a contractor. And I was at the Playa Vista Farmers Market, and I saw some thing that was like having trouble finding a contractor for your ADU or something like really specific. And it was Realm. And so then that's how, yeah. So then we ended up having a lot of help from them at
Very
that
cool.
point. It
Very
was
cool.
really nice.
And
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
and this is a good time for me to
Yeah.
mention this video is
Yeah.
sponsored. Realm is
Oh,
one
yeah.
of our sponsors because they help
Yeah.
homeowners like Kathleen
Yeah.
find builders. We're going to get into all the details of how that actually works. But
Yeah.
so you go through this permitting process, and if you've already got an existing unit, sometimes you think, oh, it's going to be easy. We don't have any work. How did
Yeah.
you discover that you still had to do a bunch of stuff?
So essentially, because whoever owned it previously didn't go through whatever channels, they kind of can't prove anything. They can't really prove that you've done things correctly until they're seeing in the walls, and they want to see every step of the
Oh,
way. So we had to bring it down to the studs. But we
whoa.
were able to keep portion, it's really funny because I looked at it and I was like, why didn't they tear this thing down? And but something about what's the term for the positioning on the property next to the next property?
Yeah, the
The
setback, the
Thank you.
side
The
yard.
setback. There on our street, everyone's are like very, very close. And so there is a loophole that the city does offer you in that way of if you don't fully tear it down, you can keep it where it is on the property. So it's like I mean, our neighbor's ADU is like right next, it's like a perfect duh, 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 duh. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah.
so we all have them, chunked in that way. Yeah, yeah,
Okay. So
yes,
so you knew you got to preserve your position, your side yard setback closer than
uh-huh,
4 feet, which is
uh-huh.
nice to preserve the yard. And and they made you go down to the stud. So that means you're tearing off drywall to show what the framing is like, what the
Uh-huh.
wires are like, what the insulation's like. You had to prove everything. And like
Yes,
a little section or a lot of walls.
it was everything.
Oh
Like
my gosh.
it was gone. It's
Okay.
basically it's totally
Yeah.
new now. It
And
is
then
much
maybe
better.
they make you scope like the sewer line
Yes.
too.
Yeah. So then that was the next very fun part was that the way that it was set up, because then once you actually get all the way through it, I can understand the legalities and why they want people to do this because there's I, I'm annoyed, obviously, but like there is some merit where the sewer line has to be completely separate, like from your main home sewer
Yeah.
line. So they trenched all the way to the street because previously it was just diverted into our sewer line coming out of our house. And so they don't like that. So we went all the way out to the street. It has
That
to have
that's from my
its own.
perspective, that's a little unusual too. But okay, so the
Yeah,
city says that they want you to go all the way to the street, not just connect it like a T in front of your house.
exactly.
Oh
No,
my
it
gosh.
went all the way out to the street. So there was like this huge trench for just
Yeah,
months. Like,
that's
it
wild.
was wild. Yeah.
All right. So again, sorry this happened to you, but
Yeah.
I know you come out on the other side. So
Right.
you're like, okay, fine. We just tore everything out, and
Um,
we're gonna have to do this and this and
right.
this.
Right.
Were there some bad surprises, or was everything?
It was all the sewer thing that was tricky was that the slope
Yeah,
in our house was not the way that basically we had to put in some very expensive pump
yeah.
because we had to hire an engineer after the fact. So then the permit had to be amended and that took extra time. So yeah, there were
Okay.
surprises.
All right.
Yeah.
But you've got this big scope of work of all the stuff you're gonna have to do, and you're thinking, now I just go need a builder, right?
Right. Right.
And
Yes.
how hard was it to find somebody? What was the hardship?
It was difficult. I mean, I'm very happy for contractors. They are doing a great job. They are busy. They,
Yeah.
they've got their options, so it's just difficult to find people who even responded, like it's from especially in LA, like this is a huge project. I hope never to do something this large again, but they consider it a small project, so it was like getting someone on board for something that you can see is actually like quite a lot of work, but not, I'm sure not as lucrative as like some of the big projects out
Yeah.
here. So yeah, so it was hard to get somebody. And then we did find someone initially. Oh, this would be something I would definitely want to warn people about. We did find someone word of mouth, who I'm sure would have done a wonderful job, but he actually only does things unpermitted. And so
Hmm.
he doesn't use, so he asked us to pull the permit from the city. Like we had gotten all the way through with him. I think we'd even signed a contract or something, but then he asked us to pull the permit, and our architect was like, "Whoa, that's fishy." And then the city of LA, to their credit, has like all these things you have to sign if you're going to do that as a homeowner. It's like, just know that sketchy contractors have you do this for these reasons, and you're liable for these things if you pull the. And so we asked him about it, and then we didn't. He was good about it in the sense that we just didn't move forward. But then we had to just start over again finding someone. So
Hmm.
yeah, it just like took a while. All of it
Yeah.
was just took a while.
Super helpful because I see this happen all the time. We've got a Facebook group with like 100,000 people in it who are trying to go through this process, and it's
Yeah.
very common. It's hard to get good builders without a
Yeah.
referral, and then
Right.
even when you get somebody out, it's very common for that to happen where you think that they're legit, they've got a contractor's
Right.
license, but
Yeah.
then you get to the actual nuts and bolts, and they're asking you to
Right.
pull the permit instead of putting
Right.
it on their license, and
Yeah.
it
Right.
you're taking on a lot of liability. You're taking on too
Right.
much. So you looked
Yeah.
at that and you said, "Ooh, probably not for us."
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then magically you go to a farmer's market and like you see the sign that's like,
Exactly.
"Are you
Exactly.
Kathleen having a hard time finding a
Exactly.
builder?"
Yeah. Exactly. It was like that, and I just, and I just took a picture because I didn't even want to like chat. I was doing,
Sure.
just doing a quick walk by. But then, yeah, then talked to them, and they ended up actually being really helpful. So,
Cool. So how did
yeah.
how does that help? You took a picture, and what was the next step?
Then my husband and I together reached out, I think by email. It was like very quick response. It was like, yep, let's get on a call and talk about this process. And that was like probably the big moment of just the big exhale was when they said like, yeah, we'll get 3 bids within the next 2 weeks. And after waiting months and months and months for like every step, it was like, whoa. And people, they said they'd review the bid because you get, if you're not, it's, again, right, it sounds like you're extremely in the know. We have never done this, had no plans to do any construction ever, and the bids come back with all this stuff that's like impossible to know if, it's like going to the car mechanic. Like, I don't know how to fix a car, so I don't know if this is correct or whatever. It's a big a lot of trust, and they were really helpful at looking at all of the bids and helping us to pick based on the
Yeah.
information. That was really nice too. Yeah.
That's cool. And so you
Yeah.
get three agreements, and they're all written in different
Yeah.
formats, and they have a bunch of jargon, and they have inclusions and exclusions. You don't,
Right.
but then
Exactly.
Realm, not only did they get you three bids faster than you expect
Yes.
just to get one,
Right.
then they help
Totally.
you compare all the bids side by side.
Yes, exactly.
And
Yeah.
so did you end up going with one of those builders?
Yes, yes. It was really nice because actually the one we went with um was the most, he actually had the highest number, but they asked us, they were like, if it weren't about money, who would you go with? And we were like, well, we really liked that guy, but obviously we're going to take one of the other two that are lower. And they negotiated, and he was able to come down to like the middle, and we're like, all right, yeah.
Yeah,
And he's great. He was fantastic.
that's
So,
cool. And so you like that builder because of the personality and the customer service and outreach
oh,
and approach.
exactly. Yeah.
And then
And
the
he,
price tag, you're like, I prefer the other price tag.
exactly, exactly. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah,
But then Realm handled that part of the negotiation for you.
totally.
That's really
Totally.
cool.
Yeah, yeah,
That's
yeah.
perfect. Do you remember the difference between the prices?
It was I okay, so it ended up being, because there was so much extra that it's hard to remember what it was quoted at
Sure.
initially. There was a $50,000 range
Yeah.
between 100 to 150, I think. And that's when we were like, ooh. And then that didn't even, I mean, it ended up not including a lot of stuff. So
Yeah.
yeah, so it was a very expensive
Yeah, yeah.
experience.
Well,
Yeah.
but and now, well, so that's important to know too. So
Right.
you went in, there was a bid down at like 100, there was a bid up at
Yeah.
150. You
Yeah.
ended up somewhere in between those
Yeah.
two numbers
Yeah.
on the bid. But then when
Yeah.
you're actually going through the project, things come
Yes.
up, and so things get added because they weren't in the
Yeah.
original agreement. And
Totally.
do you remember whereabouts you ended up total project?
I think it was over 200 for sure.
Wow. Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
just yeah.
I
Yeah.
imagine a big chunk of that was that sewer issue we just talked
It
about.
was so out of left field, and it was at least 30. It
Yeah,
could, yeah. Yeah, I tried to, like, I'm saying this cavalierly, but it's because it was so emotional and such hits that it's like, I
sure.
was trying not to remember.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. No, I
yeah,
believe you. And
yeah,
then and plus you were expecting at
yeah.
the time, so there's it's not
Yeah,
like
no,
one little budget item.
yeah,
All
yeah, yeah,
right. No, well
yeah,
the
yeah,
so that's very typical. I warn
right,
people.
yeah,
Stuff like sewer, especially when you got to connect to the street, you're instantly in the five
right,
figures. 30, honestly, that's probably without the trenching
right.
too. But
Yes, yeah,
just
yeah,
tearing up the street, you're working with sort of skilled and trained
yep,
labor.
yep,
It's
yeah,
city staff, not anyway.
right.
So
Yeah, exactly.
big deal. And so
Big,
you end up north of 200, which is a
right,
big price tag. It's more than twice what you were
totally,
expecting, but you're
yeah.
back to cash flowing on the Airbnb.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
So how's that
we
look?
haven't started yet because so we just finished
Okay.
this, and we have to get a certificate of occupancy through the city. So we're just waiting on
Yeah.
them to send us that, and then we can get back up and running,
Cool.
and we can wait. Yeah,
So
we're
from the
ready.
day where you
Yeah,
actually started with Realm
right.
back in the farmers
So
market.
yeah, that was in February, and then we wrapped up in September. Yep. Yep.
Okay.
So it was, yeah, yeah. So actually, but we got the knock on the door came in September. So I view it as a year. Like
Yeah.
it was a year.
That's a great turnaround though. So
Yeah.
September you get the bad news. Around
Yeah.
February you actually start looking for builders with Realm.
Right.
And
Hmm.
by September you're closed walls, you're waiting for a certificate of
Yeah.
occupancy, and here we are in October.
Exactly. And it would have been so also again, just our contractor was so fantastic. I mean, they were there every day. They did such there were just big chunks of time because of the sewer that held things up.
Yeah.
So I think it would have happened much faster
Yeah.
without.
Because the contractor couldn't do that work. They had to wait
Yeah,
for the
they had
city
to
people.
wait, and they had to wait for there was, different, like, amendments to the original permit to do it, and the engineer had to send whatever. Yeah.
All
So
right.
it take big chunks of time.
You made it. I want an email update when you start getting that cash coming the right
Oh,
direction again.
totally. Yeah, yeah, for
Did,
sure, for
can I
sure.
ask how did you finance the work, or did you happen to have
We
savings
took
and
out
Mhm.
loans for it, and that was kind of it's a tricky time right now for
Yeah.
that, but we had bought our home with a in part with a HELOC,
Uh-huh.
and so we were able to just kind of,
Move
eh.
some of that over. Yep. Yep, yep.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
well, that makes sense, and then it's one of those things, it's expensive, but
totally.
it's worth it to get it back cash
Right.
positive, right?
Oh,
Because
oh, for
that's what
sure.
unlocks the whole project for you guys. That's what you went
Exactly,
in for.
exactly. Yeah,
Oh
yeah.
my gosh. Okay. And then we didn't talk about some of the details, but like square
Right.
footage of the ADU.
Oh my gosh, I'm so embarrassed.
You're good. It's
It
like a
is
two
a
car.
one bedroom, uh,
Yeah.
like, if you think of a garage that could probably, like I don't think it would be even a two-car garage, like a
Okay.
1 and a half.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
So you're
size.
talking like 350, 400 square feet.
Yeah, yeah.
It's a small
It's
deal, perfect for an Airbnb, perfect for like
exactly.
a 1 year lease if people are
Yeah,
into it. But yeah, okay.
yeah,
And
yeah,
man, well, I'm glad
yeah,
Realm could hook you up, get you the
totally,
builder, because it's true on
totally.
some of these projects of a space that small, plus taking
Right.
over work from another contractor. No
Oh, yeah.
builder likes to do it, so
Right,
it's
totally.
tough to get
Yeah,
people in the door to give you the bid.
totally. Yeah,
I'm glad you had
totally.
a good experience.
Yeah. It was great. Yeah.
If it hadn't been for Realm, what would you have done?
Honestly, like, it would have taken just way more time, because when we had to start over the process of finding a contractor, it was also just like not knowing how hard it was, like doing it again. It would have just taken way more time, and I think it ultimately would have been potentially more expensive because we clearly found out we didn't know what we were doing with bids. So that was a huge, huge value add.
Super informative. I think it's going to help a
Yeah,
lot of people to hear how you went through that process,
yeah,
and if Realm would be helpful for your
right,
project, link in the description below. It's free to
yeah,
book a call with them, hear a bit more about their approach, and
yeah,
then if you want, you can hire them to get you those 3 bids. If you use one of the builders they find you, they give you that money back. So
yeah.
it's a
Oh,
very
yeah,
easy investment.
for sure.
Thank you very much for coming
Yeah,
on, Kathleen, and
thanks
sharing
so
your
much for having
story.
me.
And
Yeah.
maybe I'll get to see maybe I'll stay at your Airbnb
Yeah, for sure, you're more than
sometime
welcome.
soon.
Yeah.
I like it. I like
Yeah,
it.
yeah, for
Cool.
sure.
Thank you
All
very much,
right.
Kathleen.
Thank you.
So California just passed a brand new law that goes into effect January 2025 called AB 2533. It's all about amnesty ADUs like the one in this video. To learn more about that, check out the video that we'll put here. And if you want to learn more about Realm, because it is very hard to find builders who take over these projects, check out this playlist and you'll learn more about their approach and maybe they'll be the right fit for you.